So if you've beaten Hollow Knight Silksong, you might not be done just yet. There's actually a secret Act 3 in the game which you can unlock. It's quite a complicated and lengthy process to do, but I would actually highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of the series, because it's going to unlock for you a whole bunch of new content. Essentially, a third of the game is actually locked behind this secret act. You can finish the game early at Act 2, but if you want to get all the content, you want to get the true ending, and if you want to fight the secret final boss, you're going to need to do a couple of steps in order to do so. So today's video, let's discuss how you can unlock Act 3 and how you can get the true ending of Hollow Knight Silksong. There's actually multiple endings in this game. I believe there's 4 of them. I think there might be even more than that. I'm not 100% sure. But let's discuss how you can unlock Act 3 and what you have to do in order to get there. So first of all, there's a couple of things you're going to need to do. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to keep your eye out for the fleas, because you're going to need to collect, I believe it's half of them, 15 of them, in order to achieve one of the prerequisites that you need in order to unlock Act 3. Now, these fleas are going to be typically hidden throughout the game. They're going to usually be more difficult to reach places than secret rooms, and you are your way back to the flea caravan, where you'll be able to talk to an NPC who is going to, at certain times when you do collect enough fleas, he's going to ask that you move with them to a new location, which is how you're going to be able to keep track of how many you've gotten. So you are going to need to move this flea caravan all the way until it gets to the putrefied ducks, and this is going to be an area which you're going to be able to unlock. It's the top right hand corner of the map. It is going to be typically unlocked a little bit later on in the game. There is going to be a quest that's going to take you to this part of the map if you haven't unlocked it or if you haven't discovered it yet. However, if you do want to find it early, you're going to want to make your way to the memoriam at the top of the citadel, and there's going to be a secret room all the way on the bottom right hand corner, which will then allow you to gain access to the putrid ducks. Now, speaking of the putrid ducks, if you don't know where all of the fleas are, there is going to be an easier way to find them. This is going to be discovered at a hidden area in the middle top section of the putrefied ducks. You're going to be able to find this pathway which is going to take you to an NPC there, and when you do end up speaking to him, you can then recruit him, which will then allow him to join you at the flea caravans. And when he is at the flea caravans, you can talk to him later. You can then buy certain maps from him, and these maps are going to show you where all the fleas are going to be on the map. Each map is going to cost you a bit of rosaries, but if you are stuck and you can't find a couple of fleas that you might need in order to complete this part of the quest line, you can also buy maps from which will reveal their location. Get enough fleas to the point where you can move the flea caravan all the way to the putrefied ducks. Once it is in the putrefied ducks, you know you have done that step correctly. Now, the next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to have to do all the side quests that you're going to be able to find from the notice boards. You're going to see these notice boards. They're going to be found in the 3 settlements on the map. There is going to be one that is going to be at Bone Bottom. There's going to be one that is going to be against Belheart, and there's also going to be one that is going to be at Songclave, which you're going to find at the top right hand corner of the citadel. Now, these notice boards are going to, on occasion, have quests where you can pick up from them. These are typically going to be side quests. A lot of them are very monotonous. A lot of them are going to be side quests that are going to require you to fetch certain items, but you're going to need to do all of these side quests. However, it is important to note these notice boards aren't going to have all the quests all the time. So sometimes you might pick up a notice board quest and you might see there's no more left, only to discover that when you visit this notice board later on, you're going to then find some more quests that you're going to end up finding on the notice board. Sometimes these quest lines are going to require you to speak to certain NPCs or discover certain NPCs on the map, and then they're going to allow you to discover more quest lines when you go to notice boards. So you're going to have to make sure you constantly check these notice boards and make sure you do all of the side quests they give you. You're also going to need to do certain renovations that you can see on the notice boards. They're typically going to require you that you donate things like rosaries, and these are also going to be needed in order to unlock the Act 3. So make sure that you are saving some rosaries and make sure you upgrade these various settlements, because that is also going to be needed in order to progress to Act 3. Now, it should be worth noting that you're going to need to also be able to have completed the game up until the point where you can defeat the final boss of Act 2, that is. So make sure you also obviously do all the things that you need to do in order to defeat the final boss. That's going to require you to find the 3 main melodies, which you're going to be able to see on the map. When you do end up opening the map, you will notice that you will see these 3 icons, and then you're going to need to do these in order to get to the final boss of Act 2. However, you're not going to go fight the final boss of Act 2. You're first going to need to make sure you do all the prerequisites, because there is going to be another step, which then when you defeat the final boss, instead of killing the final boss, you're going to basically trap the final boss. That is only going to be unlocked if you are doing all the steps correctly up until the point where you fight the final boss. Now, you're also going to need to make sure you do end up going to Bilewater. And when you do end up going to Bilewater, you are going to be able to find Shakra there. Shakra is going to be able to sell you a map for Bilewater, which is going to be very valuable, because Bilewater is also going to be an important location, since there are going to be steps you're going to need to do here. One of those steps is going to require you to defeat a boss in Bilewater. This boss is going to be a pretty difficult boss, not because the boss itself is difficult, but because there's a lot of run back time. If you do end up dying to this boss, you're going to be teleported right back to the last bench you found, which is most likely going to be very far away from the boss fight. So pro tip, make sure you do end end up finding the secret bench, which is going to cut your run back time in half, it is going to be in a room which you're able to find in the center area. There's going to be a secret room, and this is going to unlock you a bench, which is going to make the run back time to this boss in Bilewater so much easier. Now, once you do end up beating the boss, you will be able to gain access to a part of the map which you will need in order to unlock the next step of the quest. But you're also going to be able to go to Bilewater, and you're going to be able to do the quest for Shakra. I believe that once you do end up speaking to Shakra in Bilewater, you will notice on the wish board you will find another quest for Shakra, which will allow you to find the burial site of Shakra's master, and that is going to take you to the top right hand corner of Bilewater, where you can end up kind of doing the last rites for Shakra's master. You can also do that over there, but I would recommend you find Shakra first. She's going to sell you the map for Bilewater, which is going to make Bilewater a whole lot easier to explore, because Bilewater is a very difficult part of the map. There's a lot of poison there, and that is going to be very, very annoying if you don't end up having that map, because you're going to get lost here very, very easily. Now, after you've done all the side quests for all the settlements, you can be able to return back to Belheart, and you can be able to talk to the mayor. The mayor is going to then award you with a key, which is going to unlock your very own bell house, and this bell house is going to be where you're going to be able to rest. There's going to be a bed there. You're also going to be able to upgrade it, decorate. You're going to be able to buy certain things for the house. When you speak to the mayor, he's going to give you your own key to Belhome. That's when you know you've done it correctly. I believe one of the ways to know that you've done all the quests for the Bone Bottom correctly is they are going to build a statue of you in your honor. So when you see that statue being built in Bone Bottom, you know you've done all the quests for them as well. When you do end up completing all the quests for all the settlements, you can speak to the caretaker. He's going to be wearing a very distinct outfit. He's also going to be holding a staff. And when you do end up speaking to him, assuming you've done all the steps correctly at this point, he's going to be able to tell you about a way where you can trap the final boss rather than killing it. He's going to kind of like let you in on a secret plan that he has developed that can help you out. If you don't get this dialogue for him, sometimes you are going to have to kind of fast travel away from this area and come back. Otherwise, if you don't get this dialogue still, that means that you still have some quests you need to do. So make sure that you do end up trying to make sure that you find all the NPCs. Just make sure you do end up revisiting maybe some of the notice boards, because sometimes there might be some quests that you haven't completed there, but just make sure you do end up doing all the side quests you can possibly do. Now, a list of the quests that you're going to need to do, basically, if you are struggling and you really can't find the quests that you're going to need to do at Bone Bottom are going to be a Bone Bottom repairs, a life-saving bridge, garb of the pilgrims, volatile flint beetles, the terrible tyrant, and an icon of hope. Then the ones at Belheart you're going to need to do is restoration of Belheart, my missing courier, silver bells, crawbug clearing, my missing brother, Bone Bottom supplies, savage beastfly, Belheart's glory, and then at Songclave you're going to need to be able to do fine pins, strengthening Songclave, the lost merchant, the wandering merchant, cloaks and choir, and balm of the wounded. Now, once you've done all those quests, you can speak to the caretaker, and I'm assuming you've done it correctly up until this point. The caretaker is going to tell you that he has a plan in order to capture the final boss. It's going to require you to get 4 items, and these items are going to be needed in order to capture the final boss. The one is going to be the Maiden Soul, the Hermit Soul, the Seeker Soul, and then the Snare Setter. So to get the Maiden Soul, it's pretty easy to do. You're going to make your way down to the spawn area. I end up finding this NPC towards the spawn area in between Bone Bottom and Moss Grotto, and you can find this NPC, the Hermit, which when if you speak to her, she will then award you with the Maiden Soul. She's pretty easy to find. She's typically going to be in the spawn area. If not, she's probably going to be wandering between the spawn area and Bone Bottom. So just make sure you keep your eye out for her, and she'll give you the Maiden Soul. Then to unlock the Hermit Soul, you're going to need to go down to Belheart again. And when you do end up fast traveling to Belheart, you will notice that to the right of the fast travel station, there will be a kind of like hidden area where it's going to be below Belheart. And you're going to be able to find the Hermit. This is going to be the grumpy man that you probably met earlier on in the game if you have discovered this location before. And if you do end up speaking to him, he will give you the Hermit Soul, which you can then acquire pretty simply just by speaking to him. Then to get the Seeker Soul, this is going to be why I said it was quite important to defeat the boss at Bilewater. After you defeat the boss at Bilewater, there is going to be this kind of like room where you can enter, and when you do end up entering the room, you will be able to find the Seeker Soul, and this is going to obviously also be needed to give to the caretaker for the next step of the Act 3 progression. Now, to get the last thing, you're going to be required to have the ability that gives you the Needlin. However, if you are at this point in the game, you almost certainly have the Needlin anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Basically, this is going to be found in towards the spawn area of the game again. You're going to want to go to Moss Grotto. There's gonna be like this big door that's gonna have like a big tomb that has like a spider face on the tomb, and when you do end up standing by this doorway and playing your Needlin, you will then end up opening up this door. This is gonna take you to an area of the map called the Weave Nest Atla. Now, once you're in the Weave Nest Atla, you're gonna have to make your way to the far right of this room, and there's gonna be some cores you're gonna have to hit in order to activate the teleporter or the lift. When you do end up then making your way to the center of the room, you can use this lift to go all the way down, and then instead of riding the lift back up, you're gonna want to climb the walls back up, and you're going to notice there's going to be a pathway on the left. You follow this pathway down to the far left hand side of the map. You can notice there's going to be like kind of like a swampy or like meadowy area with a little bit of water. There's also going to be a light shaft that's going to be shining in. You're going to want to climb your way up that light shaft, which is going to take you to another secret room, which is going to give you the snare setter. Now, once you have all these items, you can make your way back to Songclave. You can then speak to the caretaker, and he will then tell you that everything's ready to go. He's going to then tell you can speak to him closer towards the boss arena. Make your way to just before you fight the boss. You'll see him kind of just standing very close to the entrance of where you fight the final boss, and he's going to tell you you'll know what to do when the time is right. Basically, that means that you already fight the final boss if you haven't already, and if you beat the final boss, then you will have two options. One will be to kill the boss, same as before. Don't do this option because that will end the game. Do the option that it is going to capture the boss, and then what's going to happen is you're going to get a different cutscene. The game is going to take you to the credits. It's going to look like the game is over, which is actually quite confusing. However, what's going to be able to be happening then is when you do end up going back to the main menu and loading your save, you will notice your save file will be a bit different. It'll have like these very weird black vines over the save file. And when you do end up tapping on the save file, you will notice it will start shaking. If you tap it a couple of times repeatedly, it will break open those vines and it will unlock you Act 3, load back into the game, and your Act 3 cutscene will begin, and you will have successfully progressed the game to Act 3. I would highly recommend doing this if you're a fan of Silksong, because Act 3 is very different to Act 2. Enemies are going to be very different. The map is going to change in quite a lot of ways, and there's going to be a whole bunch of more content for you to explore. It is going to be very difficult, so gear up and get ready for some quite difficult gameplay. Make sure you upgrade your weapon as much as you possibly can going into this part of the game, because enemies here are going to be very difficult and the bosses are going to be quite challenging too. So you're going to need to be as well prepared as humanly possible. But if you have gotten to this point, congratulations, you have now unlocked Act 3. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comment section below. What are your tips, if you have any, for progressing to the final stage of the game? Because things definitely get quite difficult towards the end here, and I'm sure some people would definitely appreciate some pro tips if you guys have done this already. Anyways, I'll see you guys again next time. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.